I don't know if you've ever read Hannah Arendt's Eichmann in Jerusalem,
Hmm.
right? So, a report on the banality of evil. The Eichmann case provides us with the fact that you have somebody who's sitting there in court saying, well, this wasn't really my responsibility. This wasn't really my idea. Oh, here I was just following orders. Oh, this wasn't such a big deal. And what Hannah Arendt had noted was that Eichmann, he really remembered events in terms of his career and different stages in his
Right.
career and his personal life rather than in the atrocities that he was committing. And so, again, this kind of spins back to public choice and what you're saying about incentives that people have and people like Fauci. And, this was a great career moment for him. He became
Oh,
famous,
absolutely.
essentially.
Yeah, his rewards are, pandemics are bad things, and I'm not going to argue that Anthony Fauci wants pandemics to happen. Quite the contrary, but they are a political opportunity when they come along. It means that now suddenly the public sector is inclined to grant every budget request that someone could ever have. It means that the media wants you on camera, wants you on their TV station. They want you in their newspapers. So all the incentives that come out of that from Fauci are very much aligned with him to continue some of the behaviors that he adopted, including where they strayed away from this pure scientific administrator. F.A. Hayek makes a very similar point, says that the type of people that rise to the top of bad regimes, illiberal regimes, and he's saying, whether this is the extreme situations of Nazi Germany or Stalinist Russia, or just general authoritarian illiberal regimes, he says the people that the worst tend to rise to the top because they're the true believers in their own conviction. They think that they're doing something right, and they think that they're on the side of justice, and that means that anything and everything that stands in their way can be shoved aside or ignored, or in some cases even suppressed, because it's justifiable, because the end that they're after basically means that means is now permissible. So I think you very much get political incentives aligning with an ends justify the means approach. And Fauci's even said this in some of his interviews. He went on camera and basically said, "Yeah, well, I lied about the efficacy of aspects of masking because it was in the better interest of the public that they do these certain things at certain times. I lied about what I thought the herd immunity threshold was in because I was trying to induce more of the public to get vaccination boosters." He's gone on TV and said this several times, where he claims that he is telling the noble lie. And as the noble liar, because it's for an end that he has determined is right, that is somehow morally permissible to him to justify actions that are really not above the board. And, you get someone in that type of a position that has that mindset, the noble lies start to spread. And I think now what we have is, after 2.5, 3 years almost of this guy being on the front page of the pandemic response, being on TV and on camera every night, he's become addicted to his own celebrity and uses that to rationalize almost subconscious deviations from the truth. And you see that in the deposition. I mean, here's a guy that is responding question by question to things that he knows are wrong, things that he knows that they've caught him on, but it's just this evasion. It's just
Yeah.
this, well, I have a rationale why I did this. He never admits to doing things wrong, never admits, says, well, that was an error. He says, well, I had a rationale and it was for the better judgment at the time, or I don't remember
Yes.
that, or it's just a recurring evasion that you see as a pattern from this guy.
And do you think then that bureaucrats, and especially, in the state of bureaucracy now, where it's so huge, it's so bloated, it's so
Yeah.
big, do you think that then they have those kinds of incentives to not be accountable?
That's exactly the case. I mean, especially when you have one that's been anointed by the media as a celebrity, where they buy into him when he says that he claims he's the representative of the science. It insulates them from just the normal processes, and we saw this in the House and Senate testimony that Fauci gave. If you remember, several times Rand Paul would confront him about actions that turns out that Rand Paul was right about. So, like the suppression of the lab leak theory. And then Rand Paul grilled them about some of these same emails that we found in the FOIA request. And what was the media story? Well, they would always buy into Fauci's response, and Fauci would go on there and offer like this really not very substantive, kind of vacuous, but soundbite style response and say, Senator Paul, no, you're lying. And the next thing you know, it's CNN headline, Fauci shuts down Rand Paul. And Rand Paul's just reading the emails from the documents. So it's a really one-sided thing because the media clearly picked a side in the pandemic, and Fauci was their champion, their person that they wanted to put forward.
So that's exactly it. The media chose a side, and that's where we have another common thread with the Twittergate and with the Fauci deposition is the media chose a side.